G'day guys, it's Jake here. Nothing in this video is financial advice. Please do your own research when it comes to investing. Be sure to check out the links below, including exchanges I use and social media content that I post. Alright, let's go. So the topic for today's video, we'll be going over Ethereum. So Ethereum USD, price tracking for the rest of the year, and also Ethereum Bitcoin at the end. So look at that as well. But let's look at the cryptoverse logarithmic regression bands for the lower end of the price action. And you can see from 2015 August, where pretty much ETH launched, these bands, activated, and they're being rising up like, a logarithmic channel, essentially. But it's not for the top, it's just for the bottom. Okay, it goes like that, rises up. And so if you go back to 2015, when it launched, it came back and corrected right back down to these bands. As you can see, the price did get to the lower band of 0.4 roughly. And you can see price is 55 cents for Ethereum. So you can only imagine 42 cents, 42 cents down the low there. And then it came back up above the bands and then came back down again. And the price was around 84 cents here, and that was the middle band roughly. So touch it here, it came up for the halving year in 2016, and then we corrected after the halving year. So this is late in the halving year, and as you can see, we did come down to the bands again and got to the lower bands, right down the bottom there at $7, $7.15, and the lower band at 6.92. So we came back as like we did here when it's launched, the pre-halving year and the halving year, we came back to the bands again. Now into the bull run, the post-halving year 2017, it rallied up to the top, of course, and got to about 1.2, 1.3k-ish. All right. Anyway, it happened there, and it came back in the bear market in 2018, and corrected back to these bands, but got to the middle bands at $82. Okay, so as you can see the middle, no bubble fit middle band there, and the price pretty similar there. So it got to the middle band, and then sort of chopped sideways and rallied up. There's 19. Then the Fed cut rates, and then ETH just bled down. Okay, and then as you can see here, it got to the bottom band, and it was around 130, 124, and then the bottom band's 120. So pretty close to the bottom there, as you can see. And it rode up before the infamous pandemic. And we really couldn't get above this top of band. We sort of did, and then we just shot down. Okay. The price got to around, it was about $90. You can't really see it on this chart, but it got to 90. And it obviously to the lower band and broke below the lower band. This is the first time it really broke below it. And it rallied back up into the bull year. After the halving year, into the bull year, into the post-halving year. And obviously made its top around 4-ish K, okay, 4.5K, even higher here. And then it obviously corrected for the bear year. I like to call it the bear year, but it's the bear year, okay? It's after the post-halving year. Anyway, this happened, and it corrected right down to here, got to about, it's low, around 862 $1,000 price sees it there, but it doesn't really show up properly. If you go on a chart, it says around $850 odd. I got to. It's a bit out there. Okay, so anyway, that's just how this is showing. And it didn't touch the top of the band, and we came back again, and got to around early ones again, and didn't touch the top of the band. Okay, so we just grinded higher into the summer. All right, and we sort of corrected because of just boringness, nothing happened, and then boof, we didn't touch the band again. We came to it again, and we didn't even get to it, and we've rallied up into the halving year, like this year, of course, and had double top there, and then we come back down. We haven't touched any of these bands at all for this cycle. So this concerns me. And I do see it coming down like in 2019, specifically 2019, because of the rate cuts. And it's very similar to what's happening now, and I'll show you in the charts what's going on. But yeah, we haven't seen it correct enough for me to get interested at all in the altcoin market. All right, because it's what people want to be doing is they want to invest in altcoins because you got high risk, high reward. But if you want to lower your risk, you want prices to come lower. Of course, you lower your risk, and that's how you make more money. You buy lower, you sell higher. And I'm not getting these. I want to get these lower prices, And as this rises over time, obviously prices has to continue to rise as it has been doing. And into 2025 here, at the start of the year, $1,000 is the bottom of the band, so you still get to 1,000. Okay, it's still a possibility, and that's where I see it going. But we haven't touched it yet, and that's just that chart. All right. The end of the charts for Ethereum, and as you can see, price there on the 3-day time frame, and we are hovering around 2,700 in the middle of this area. So we've got this support line here. It's roughly 2,900, just below 3,000, and we have a upwards rising wedge, and we did come back down into it at 1,900, and we just shot up like a rocket. And stock market obviously did too. Had like a V-shaped recovery, and then it just sort of grinded, and it's sort of troubling. It's sort of struggling to get up to this resistance area, and I don't see it going much higher than that. I think it's all over for Ethereum, and we're heading to lower levels. And, why would I say that? Why would I say this wedge, price is consolidated inside it. We've risen, done a pretty good shoot up there. Nice rise in price from this bottom area to here, 166%. It's fantastic. And Ethereum looks like it's going to keep going higher. It's coming down, it's consolidating, it's taking a breather before the next leg up into the mania phase, which I don't see happening at all. So people want this alt season sooner than what usually happens. Okay, it doesn't happen in the halving year; it happens in the post-halving year. Every other time, that's what's occurred. So don't be too optimistic and follow the influencers that just shill, and just shove it down your throat and want you to believe in their narrative and theses about why this time is different and we can go higher sooner and continue up to the heavens and just shoot up. I think one guy I watched a video from the altcoin analyst, and he was saying the bloke wanting 500k Bitcoin, 400k Bitcoin, I think it was, and thinking, God, by the end of the year, 400k Bitcoin just coming down, consolidating before the next move higher, like a big breather, and then accumulation shoot high. I don't know. I mean, that's never going to happen. Like at its rate. To get to the end of the year, I could never see that playing out. If it does play out, left transode cycle, it would be probably 100k Bitcoin, 120k max. But Ethereum, I don't think Ethereum will catch up and do as well as Bitcoin. It'll be a Bitcoin run if it occurs. Ethereum will lag behind. Okay, so we've got this wedge. I'll go back to what we're talking about, where we are at the moment. All right. Why is this wedge significant? Well, I'll show you why it's significant. Because of the Federal Reserve. There we go. So we've got the interest rates, okay, on the charts, and we are flat, of course, at the moment. So we've had this big rise up from 0.25, as you can see there, on the left-hand side, and it's been flat, and then it shot up, all right? And they've been raising rates to fight inflation, the Fed has been doing, and now it's flat, okay? And they're going to look at cutting rates next month, is what the talks are about, and the probabilities are suggesting that we're going to get cuts soon. So next month, very, very soon. All right. And what happens with ETH when it gets the rate cuts? And we're forming this pattern, this wedge. Well, I'll show you what happened last time. This is here. I've got this red line here, which shows you the red, obviously where the rate cut is. And when they started raising rates, it was 2015 when it was born. All right. And it's been doing well. All right. Up until these rate rises, it's done well because that was a bull year. And that made sense, but they weren't. Look where the interest rates were, 1.5%, like going from 0.25% to 1.25 to 1.5, right at the top here. That's bugger all. That is hardly noticeable. It's tiny compared to where we are today at 5.5%. Okay, a big difference. That's why ETH hasn't been doing so well. It's been struggling under these tight, restrictive policies at the Fed. So anyway. I'm getting off track. We rose the rates, and then it flattened out. Okay, like we're getting here. Same thing, flattening out after these big staircases, if you want to call them staircases or steps. And then they cut rates, right? in July of 2019. And what was ETH doing? Had a wedge formed, consolidated. We broke out of the wedge. All right. Broke out right here. And we broke up. And then we came back down. All right. After this big breakout, and before rate cuts arrived, and then boom, price slammed back into the wedge, as you can see here, and also this horizontal support line at around $190. All right, back to this consolidation area here and distribution and drop. Came back to it. Obviously, the rising trend line. The cut happens, and then not long after the cuts, about 2 or 3 weeks later, it just dropped, and then it just bled. ETH just absolutely just sunk down. And I'll show you what it did do. What was the drop from roughly these candle closes to here? It was a 45% drop. All right. If you want to go from the support line, it's a 40% drop roughly. So 40% drop, and then rates flattened out. So they thought that was the end of it. The price rallied up. They thought the rate cuts were over. And they slam rates and the prices just dropped like a rock. And we came back to this level here, roughly, not exactly, but it got to $90. As you can see, the wick is 90, and price went a little bit lower, about $80. Okay, so it got close to the bottom of the late 2018 bear market. So revisit these lows. It's important to notice. All right, so that's the pattern. We'll get the arrows out again. So you had this wedge, all right, same as 2019. She might show you on the logarithmic. Wedge, breakout. We had a breakout, of course, and it came back down after the rate cuts arrived. We had a breakout, came back down, and the rate cuts haven't arrived yet. But you can still see a bit of a rally. I'm not saying we can't, but the rate cuts haven't happened yet. So there's still room to move higher, okay, because we've just had this, obviously broke down there. So broke up. It came back down. All right, as you can see there. As you can see, it's obviously wicked down, but didn't close inside this wedge. But there is room to move the upside, and I'll show you the next chart why. But right now, I'm just showing this pattern playing out before the rate cuts do occur. All right, so after this happens in mid-September, I don't know how deep we're going to go. If there's 5.5 there, if you go into here, that's a 50 basis point cut. That's pretty aggressive, but it could go down to around here, all right, which is a 25 basis point, which is very shallow and very unnoticeable. And I don't think ETH will like a shallow rate cut. I think it will drop a lot more. If it gets a big, sharp rate cut, it might like that more. I don't know. I don't know exactly how it's going to respond to the severity of the cut, but it'll all because of the weak job data. That's the reason they're cutting, not because of inflation. The Fed's got inflation under control. It's the job market is in very big trouble. All right, so that's the cut there, and you go back, and like I said, cuts arrive, and ETH just bled 40% from this breakdown period. ETH from this support level here, roughly, that's 25%. All right, and not much more, 49%. A bigger drop will get us down to the bottom, right, which is $1,000. Because we went to the bottom. We know it was a pandemic drop, and it was a black swan event. But nevertheless, it was a recession, okay? And if we go into a recession, it'll be pretty similar. It won't drop as hard, but it'll drop slowly to the downside. But this was a sudden shock. That's why it dropped so suddenly and frighteningly, and just it was mania at the time. And then, we got to the lows just about. I see us revisiting the lows, but not the very bottom wick, $877, but $1,000, okay? And that was pretty similar to this. We didn't get to the bottom. We got to sort of right towards the bottom. All right, trick people. But I do see it's playing out exact same due to the rate cuts coming for the Fed, and nothing to do with its fundamentals of Ethereum. Ethereum's fundamentals are still well and strong. Just to do with the Federal Reserve. It's got nothing fundamentally, like I said, just monetary policy doing its thing. And we're in QT still. We haven't gone to QE. It'll do a lot better when QE arrives. Quantitative easing. So that is the price there, and that's that. And I also have 2016. Okay, we had a wedge consolidation. We broke out of it. very briefly, it came down and then broke down from that wedge and revisited these lows, okay? And, I should measure the drop from the breakdown period. It was a 40% drop. So it's the same. If you want to go to the wicks here, well, obviously wicks lower, but the closes were around 41%, all right, from this wedge. We got from the bottom here, this support level was about 40%, just about. And if you want a 40% correction, you're looking at around here, okay, which would be about $1,200, not quite $1,000, but that's 40% or 50%, which is what I'm expecting because we're going into recession. That'll be $1,000. All right. So that's that analysis. Next chart here. The reason why I can see us rallying up, all right, as I was talking about, before we see it back declining and breaking this low, and it's just 2,100, but on the other chart, it was the wick was as low as 1,920. It's on a different exchange. All right, that's notable to make a note of. And we have a gap, a CME gap, and gaps always get filled. Okay, as you can see, there's a gap here, got filled just about. We had a gap here, it got filled with this wick. We had a gap here. What happened? We came back and filled it. We had a gap here. What happened? We filled it. All right. And there's a gap here. Guess what? Sorry, terrible drawing. We wicked and we filled it. All right. So just showing you what's happened previously. And obviously we have a big gap here. All right. And we had to fill it. And where will price go to is your question. All right. So we have a fib tool from the top to the wick and a 618, which is a very common retracement level. It's called the golden ratio. And it's just above, this gap, which I see it going to, which is around $3,000. So I do see ETH. Well, I don't know what it's going to do here, but I do see very soon it'll have a pump before the rate cuts arrive. Right, it'll pump up to here and fill the gap. And then, see, September 16, it'll come back down and probably even lower, have a bigger drop. We'll see. And then it'll break to the downside. And we head down to first 1,500 and then 1,000. Into 2025, I don't know. Probably, yes, most likely, because the recessions do last anywhere from 6 months to 3 or 4 years. All right. That's the worst. That's depression. That's bad. Really, really bad. So hopefully the recession's not too bad. I hope it's a 6-month recession and we get out of it pretty quickly and the bull run resumes at the end of 2025. All right, which is what we expect to do. And the lower that ETH goes, the bigger run it's going to have. Okay. So the more of a sell-off it gets, the more of a rise it'll get. That's what you want to see. You want to see something that sells off really hard and you buy it when it's really low. All right. And that will do really, really well. If it's fundamentally sound, which I think obviously Ethereum being number 2 is a very strong project. So you can't go wrong with Ethereum in this bull run. And that is the reasoning behind this pump. The other reason why it should go up higher is we have the bull market support bands coming down. And as you can see, as it drops, we're at the EMA, the green line, is at 3,075. And the SMA is at 3,200. All right. So as it goes lower, it should come up to it. Okay. And it drops, all right, into rate cuts. And what it does from there, it should really fall. Okay. ETH should just decline and go lower to these lower levels, like I mentioned. $1,000. And I showed you on the other chart, why it goes and visits its low. It makes a low in the bear market, right? Here in 2018, we come back and revisit it. Okay, revisit that low. This one's a bit more nuanced, but it's sort of noticeable, but it's because it's very new here. All right, so this wasn't a bear market like the other one was. This is a halving year. It's a 53% drop, so quite volatile back then, and we came back to it. That wasn't the end of it. We came back to it. All right, so it was a big correction for ETH in the early days, and this was a bear market, so it was an even bigger drop from the top to the bottom. It was a bigger drop. It was a 94% drop. It's huge. And we came back. Even after that, we had a rally and we still came back down to it. All right. So don't think it's impossible. I'm not saying it's certainty. It's only a probability. Okay. And this could play out into mid 2025 or end of the year. It could drop like a rock. We don't know. It depends on how the Fed reacts to these jobs numbers, and they get really, really bad. They'll slam rates aggressively, and the price will just drop like a rock. Like I showed you during the pandemic, the rates just dropped, from 1.75 to basically 1.15 or so, and then back down to 2.25. It's a huge drop there, okay? So you could get something like that, or we could stall out around 3 on the left-hand side there. We probably won't go down to these low levels in the near future, but we'll come back at probably a bit higher, as Fed doesn't need it to go down that low. All right, but that's just another discussion, but that's just showing what is happening there. So yeah, that's the gap fill. Just wanted to discuss with you, and the bull market support being at 3,000 and the Fibonacci retracement. So all these things line up, all right, with a short-term ETH rally to these levels. And you'll see that I'm playing out pretty soon, very, very soon, before the rate cuts mid next month. Now, we have ETH Bitcoin, and we'll finish up on ETH Bitcoin here. I just want to quickly show you, so the ETH Bitcoin charts, and the blue is the Ethereum USD, okay? So obviously 2015 August is when it launched. They both sold off. They both sort of correlated. They both shot up. And so it's very correlated. See, it goes down, goes up, and then goes down. So in the early days, it was very, very correlated, and it shot up. As price went lower, the ETH Bitcoin pair, and then ETH went higher. That was the blow off top for ETH. Okay, made a higher high before it went to the bear market. Okay, it's the important thing to notice is the breakdown period here. Okay, so we had made a low here. Okay, we actually broke it this week. What happened here? We marked roughly a top for Ethereum around the top before it fell. Okay, and percentage drop. I might have to get how accurate this is, but let's wait and see. I don't know if this is accurate. I probably won't count on that one that drop, but nevertheless it did drop, all right. And ETH Bitcoin fell 53%. ETH probably fell a lot more. I was around 50%, I believe, but anyway, that fell, and that was a top. After ETH Bitcoin broke, well, it didn't close, but did break a fake out below this low it made in April, and then in June it broke down and shot back up. But it did mark a top for ETH, notably. Now the next pattern is something similar. We had a high and a lower high, so higher, lower high. We made this low here, same as this one. All right, it's a similar pattern. So we made this low here, okay, and we came back down to it. We didn't break it, so Ethereum kept trending down. And we didn't go lower than it, okay, so price consolidated and then wicked, and then eventually it broke with a big, big candle, this purple candle here. It broke support, and once this broke, okay, ETH Bitcoin, what happened to ETH USD? It marked the top for ETH USD, okay. That was the top in ETH USD. It wasn't a fake out this time around. It was an actual full break and a close, but nevertheless, it broke below this low here. All right, established in December of 2017, and then finally in July 2019, we broke it. All right, and it was a lot earlier here in the early days, as you can see. It was April to June. It was only a couple of months. So it broke it, fake out, and it topped for ETH. All right. And we fell 38% from this breakdown period. All right, if Bitcoin did. And okay, we've got this next one, and that was 2017 cycle, 2021 bull market. We obviously had a high here, and we had made a low and made a lower high. So same pattern as this for ETH Bitcoin, okay, the purple and green. So very, very similar. All these ones, right? We made this low, of course, which is similar, same as these ones, and we had this low here and secondary low here. Where was the secondary low established? Where it broke? Well, good you ask. Came in around here. Okay. So this actually wasn't the top in ETH USD. Okay, so this wasn't quite the top. So you think, well, it didn't work this time around. And then if you wanted to go from the candle break, okay, so a full candle break, which is the next candle here, was this time around, it was around the top, okay? So this one did mark a very close top for Ethereum USD, for ETH Bitcoin, but this first one was a fake out and it didn't mark a top. So it failed here, and the second time around it did work, okay? So, you know, it had a breakdown here in 2019. That worked. It was a local top for Ethereum before it dropped. And then in 2016, of course, it faked out and marked a top. All right. So I'm just telling you what's happening with these different ideas. All right. So they are them. Just wanted to show you on the drawings to make it more prevalent. Okay, so we'll finish up with on ETH Bitcoin itself. And this will pretty well mark a bottom. This will bottom out first before Ethereum bottoms out. So 53% drop. Okay. Let's pull up the Ethereum chart again. So, okay. And I'll pull up logarithmic for both of them. And as this one, you know, consolidated and dropped, it bottomed out, and ETH USD bottomed out. So around the same time, okay. So both bottomed here in the early days in 2016, December. Now we had a similar thing here. We bottomed out, but Ethereum didn't bottom out though this time around. It came up with another bottom, which was a higher low, higher than that one. And this was a pretty well bottom, all right? So it was lower than this level, as you can see here. And then it shot up, and that was it. And then until the pandemic, and obviously it made even lower low. So that was a freak drop. If you don't include the pandemic, if you just disinclude that, it's just this one here, which is a secondary low, and it marked the bottom. This time around, I want this to bottom first. And I do see it buying in this box, the lower end of this box at 0.035, roughly, is where I see it bottom. And then not long after that, we could do a double bottom like in 2019, or just a single bottom like in 2016. Either can play out, and ETH will bottom out at the same time, or it'll bottom out a little bit later, like it did in 2019, okay? So that is that comparison. All right. And this trend line, of course, as you can see there, it got close to it here in 2016. It formed from 2016. It came back to it in 2019. All right. And then trend line lines up with this box. Okay. So you got 53% drop from its lows. I'll just quickly show you on that. It's easier. 53% drop from this breakdown period, from this yellow line. 38% drop and a 28% drop. So it's diminishing returns. It drops less and less and less every time as the asset class just gets bigger and bigger. And one more thing to note is the 120%. Okay, this is from the very low in 2017 it made. As you can see the wick there. All right, the wick, and the area to the bottom of this 2019 one was 120%. And then if you go from the 2019 bottom, all right, to now, it lines up this box, the bottom of the box at 120%. So quite interesting there. And that is the ETH Bitcoin pair. And I'll see this bottom before ETH takes off. All right. And one more thing I'll show you is the Wall Street balance sheet. So this purple Fed balance sheet, okay. And you see what this red says Fed QT, green is Fed QE. Fed QT is red, Fed QE is green. So ETH Bitcoin goes up, okay, when there's QE, it's bullish, and it's bearish, ETH Bitcoin is in QT. All right, as you can see, the balance sheet go down as well. Balance sheet was flat here, we went up. Balance sheet was down, and we went down, okay. And see where it bottomed? See where ETH Bitcoin bottomed? It was right around here when Fed pivoted to QE. That's notable, okay. And it topped right around the time when they started to reduce their holdings. So QT, it topped around there. It Did top a bit sooner, but a lower high, and that was it. Okay, just sunk down from there. It's not perfect, but it gives you a rough idea. Okay, and then obviously in this period here, we shot up, and so did Ethereum USD and Ethereum Bitcoin, and we topped around a bit later, but it did sort of consolidate, and then it finally sold off. ETH Bitcoin did, and obviously Ethereum USD sold off a bit sooner, as you can see there. But Ethereum Bitcoin has been bleeding this whole time. ETH has been rallying, but against Bitcoin, it hasn't been doing so well. So Bitcoin's outperforming it, and it's just been bleeding down. As the purple goes down, they reduce their holdings. The bottom for this ETH Bitcoin chart will be when the Fed go from QT to QE. Okay. Whoops. Around there, the bottom here will occur when the Fed balance sheet does pivot, okay, and goes up. That will mark a bottom just around the bottom, roughly. It's not exact, perfect, but it will be marked the bottom for ETH Bitcoin. And then shortly after, ETH USD will find the bottom. Okay, so I'm waiting for it to go to QE. It's not the timing yet, but when that occurs, altcoins will be in the buying zone for me. All right, so that's that. So I hope you enjoyed this video, just going over Ethereum USD and Ethereum Bitcoin and the Ethereum futures chart, just discussing where I can see it going in the short term and then into the end of the year. So I do see it shooting up like a bit of a rally, of a fake rally to the 6.8 retracement level at around 3K ETH, and that'll line up with the gap fill on the futures chart. So fill the gap, and then it'll just come back down, okay? And then after right around the rate cuts arrive, ETH will sell off and then break down eventually shortly after the rate cuts. And head to roughly $1,000 is my lower target for next year at the very bottom. But probably towards the end of the year, I'd say $1,500 is a reasonable target, $1,500 to $1,200, and then $1,000 by next year. Okay, is my very bear case, but $1,200 is my base case. $1,200, and then my bear case is $1,000 ETH, which will revisit the bottom levels like it did in 2016. It did revisit its low, and in 2019 it happened again. Like in 2020, the year after, it revisited the 2018 to 2019. Okay, it was late 2018 low. All right, so revisit that low. I do see it playing it again. And also the regression channel, that will have to be touched at some points. We had 3 lines, non-bubble fit lines, and we haven't touched them at all this cycle, or this bear cycle, really bear going into the halving and then bull. So this sort of boring period in between, we have not touched the bands like we have in previous bearish periods and sell-offs. So yeah, waiting for that to happen, and that'll be absolutely exciting. I'll be so happy, and I'll get you guys, hopefully motivate you guys to start vesting then. It's not financial advice, of course. Don't throw everything in. Only put in what you can afford to lose, because it is risky and things can fail. So best thing is to find some projects that you like, altcoins you like, and do your research on them and invest in them. With the spread, you spread out your money, okay? And invest a little bit. And then trickle in. Because further downside could happen. Things that really hit the fan. And I could be wrong, and we could head even lower than $1,000 for ETH. I mean, anything's possible. You can go into a bad recession, and things could play out even worse than I expect. But also things could play out better than I expect. And we don't even get down to 1,000. We get to $1,500, and that's the bottom. So, yeah, always just it's about the Fed. Watch the Fed, what they do with QE, okay? So when they start printing money and they start buying up bonds, okay, that is when you start looking and raise an eyebrow and see how what their confidence is in the cutting rates, the job market, and yeah, obviously inflation will drop. And I do think it's a time to get in my opinion. So yeah, that is that. All right, so if you enjoyed this video, please smash the like, comment your thoughts below, subscribe to stay updated, click on the links below, and I'll catch you next one. Cheers.